motherfucker. Give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to do that again. Welcome to the Cannabis Review, everybody. I'm delighted to be joined in this episode by Conor Macleod, who's the founder of CannaMan TV, based out in Scotland. How you keeping today, Conor, mate?
I'm doing very well, man. How you doing?
I am fantastic, man. Thanks very much for taking the time to do this.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, very much delighted to have you on. So I was doing a good bit of research in media and cannabis, and came across a load of your series and found some of them hilarious. So I thought I'd get you on and we can get have a little discussion on Cannabis Media. Do you maybe want to give everybody a quick little overview of how you ended up in the industry and starting up CannaMan TV?
Yeah, certainly. Essentially, like most of us, been smoking since I was about 14, 15 kind of thing, consuming the whole time. And as time goes on, you kind of find yourself in a position where you take a direction of things that you're passionate about. So I just decided to, bring it into something entertainment based. So it's been good. The CannaMan TV, that's really a consequence of forethought, really. So the cannabis industry has kind of been in its infancy the whole time, and as it's been emerging, anybody that's consuming cannabis is aware that it's only at the beginning stages. So I thought apply a passionate element into it. I've always been into drawing, so at the same time as consuming cannabis, I started to make the comics over this side here. You see these comics here. And I started making them and developing it into an animation series. And as a consequence of trying to make it visible to the industry, I created the podcast, and as a kind of like a trajectory for the animation series. And it's taken a long time to get to a stage where the animation is ready. So it's only been the past year, one halfway through season 2. So the engine's running, and it's good to see where it's going.
Yeah, it's great to see. I think once you get into the content side of things, you kind of realize that at 50, 100 episodes is when you'll actually start to get comfortable with everything that it's going. A couple of quick little questions on your episodes. Like, how long does each episode take to make from the start of the idea to the end and the production and post-production?
A month, so it's 4 weeks, four solid weeks. Like, essentially, I'll come up with the idea. The other thing I'll point out as well, at the moment, I'm working through season 2. So season 2, each one of the animations that's up at the moment from season one and season 2 is essentially an animation adapted from this comic book here, that one there, essentially. So there's 14 original CannaMan comics that's in that book, and that took about 14 months because each one of the comics was a month to make. So then that was the intention. The foundation was for the comics. I've then adapted them into the animation series. So I'm on episode 11, which is season 2, episode 4. So this is comic 11. So I've got 3 more after this, and that'll be season 2 finished, and that'll be all the original comics will be done from the original comic books, and I'll be working on season 3. But it's a month per episode for animation from the idea, the storyboard. But essentially, because of the fact that these are adapted from the comic book series, I don't need to do a storyboard because the storyboard's the comic itself. So once season 3 arrives, when all the original comics are done, that'll be exciting because that'll be completely new content. There will be no comics based on it. That'll be like my intention is to create kind of like a format. So each season is 7 episodes, and for season 3, the 7 episodes are going to be in correlation with the 7 principles of the Hermetic philosophy, and I'm going to essentially intertwine the cannabis rhetoric, cannabis narrative, contemporary cannabis information on top of the 7 principles of the Hermetic philosophy, because it would kind of be, it'll be interesting, it'll be fun. I find both, I'm passionate about both, and so it's a month per episode, and at the moment I'm on comic 11, essentially episode 11. So but I don't know if you're aware, I've mentioned it on a couple of other podcasts, but I'm actually working on the CannaMan movie that will be ready at the end of August, and that's I'm on about scene 4. And scene 4 of 9, and again, each scene takes a month. And this is what's so interesting about the process of creating the comics, is that inevitably it's been each comic has been a precursor to the episode, and the episode has been a precursor to the scenes. So it's really a domino effect, and it's really a fascinating process because it's not exclusive to even animation. This is consistent, it seems to be, with any craft, any endeavor. There's whatever you do on the micro is represented on the macro, and the micro in this case is the single panel comics, and then it went on to the full comics, and then the macro in this sense is the movie, which is let's say that's going to be a belter when that arrives.
I very much look forward to it. You also wrote a book, A Case for Cannabis, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What was the reasoning behind that? Was that a long process? Was it just trying to get your thoughts out on paper? Was it an actual specific strategic, I'm going to convince an argument to this type of audience?
Essentially, the case for cannabis was written in 2019, 2000, the end of 2018, 2019, and the reason why I wrote it was because I was putting the planning into doing the channel. So I was linking myself with most people that are cannabis orientated. If you promote any form of discussion based on cannabis, to the layman, they'll think that you're just promoting something that you like. So inevitably you're going to be biased. So I was like, well, I don't have any credentials. There's no academic background for any form of science or chemistry or biochemistry. So I was like, what can I do to provide a foundation of professionalism? I don't have a white coat. That would help. So I was like, well, if I create a book that's academically referenced, then I'll be able to promote myself in a much more professional manner when the channel arrives. So I was like, it took me 4.5, 5 months to write A Case for Cannabis, and that was about 3 months before I started the channel. And The Case for Cannabis essentially is it's like 10, 11 chapters. Each chapter is relevant to a main talking point in the cannabis world. So it's essentially, the best way to describe the book is it's a broad spectrum analysis of all the main issues relating to cannabis. So you've got a chapter on the endocannabinoid system, a chapter on the terpenes, a chapter on cannabinoids and medicinal value, a chapter on recreational substance use. And inside that chapter, I really enjoyed researching for that one, because what I found was I essentially compared cannabis consumption in a recreational format to other recreational substances, but I used alcohol, but I also used caffeine and energy drinks in the context of caffeine. And everybody's aware that these things are kind of detriment to your health, but I had no idea that, I mean, caffeinated energy drinks are responsible for deaths. You know, like energy drinks have killed people, and yet these
Yeah.
things are readily available in the shop. And then we've got this cannabis, this very natural plant, which is a boost to your physiology, which is still prohibited. It's still, the information is still being pushed underground intentionally. So yeah, the book was essentially a cathartic release of information that I've been collecting over the course of years, and then I've put a really concerted effort, focused effort over the course of 4 months to compilate all the contemporary research and put it into the book. And yeah, I'm delighted with it, to be honest. But the only thing I would say is, because of the fact that I had nobody to proofread it, when going from one chapter to the next, it's kind of intense. You know, there's no breathing room. There's not any like sidestep or wee thing. It's just intensive, fucking academically referenced stuff. So yeah, but it's good, and you can get that on Amazon if anybody's interested.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be putting up the link to all of the places of content for Conor in the description, on whether it's YouTube or Spotify, wherever you are. It is funny to see the hypocrisy from some side of the things. We can already point to 3,500 deaths a year from alcohol in Ireland, yet our Taoiseach is out opening up a distillery for whiskey, and at the same time trying to say that cannabis is bad. It resonates, I think, across the whole world, the hypocrisy from one side to the other.
It's bizarre. I mean, it's really bizarre, and I could see why individuals who are not informed about the chemical basis of the plant, and they have no knowledge of cannabis, I can see why they're kind of consumed by the rhetoric that cannabis is a drug, it's bad for you, and all these kind of things, because you've essentially got a society that promotes poisonous material under the basis of tax. Really, these things. I mean, I don't know. I'm pretty certain that alcohol, the legislation behind alcohol, is based under a category of like time period. I think it's like 80 years ago, therefore it's still legitimate. I could be wrong, but there's peculiar legislation that's related to substances which are poisonous, and yet there is a suppression of information for this plant, which is beneficial, literally crucial. I mean, an interesting thing that I found most explicit when I was writing the book was that cannabis is not only crucial to our endocannabinoid system. Cannabis, and a consequence of researching the plant itself, we discovered more about our own physiology. Like, we didn't know about the endocannabinoid system. We discovered parts of our body and a crucial, the master controller, as a consequence of cannabis. Like, so we found out more about the human race as a consequence of this plant, and yet you're still punished for it. You've got people in prison for it. You know, people are dying because they can't get access to it. You know, and that's why, let's say, things like what you're doing, you know, the cannabis media thing, is so crucial to kind of break the stigma. And I think personally that the stigma and the narrative that cannabis is a negative thing will still be present long after the legislation's passed and makes it more favourable. You know, it's had a really profound impact on the psyche of society.
Yeah, it is gas to think that stuff like magic mushrooms could just breeze by legislation, whereas cannabis is held as this moral compass of wrongdoing. But that's neither here nor there. As you were stating, cannabis media is where we kind of need to focus. And that's the next thing I wanted to talk about, is the cannabis media and content on a global scale. I don't know about you, but I couldn't be more underwhelmed by the content that comes out of America and Canada from like companies that are supposedly worth tens of millions or hundreds of millions, that they don't have a couple of thousand to be able to develop good content on a weekly, bi-weekly, or even monthly basis. What are your thoughts on the cannabis media content overview of the global industry?
Very similar, quite honestly. I mean, I'm kind of woefully out of touch when it comes to really any entertainment based outside of the UK. I mean, I don't even really pay much attention. I spend so much time focused on drawing and creating animation, which is kind of in concert with your comment, really, because at the same time as that there's not really a significant presence of cannabis media, I'm trying to construct it independently.
Yeah.
You know,
But
so
even
like,
if you think, like, as we spoke just before camera, like there's the duo Sid and Mike, a guy and a girl from America, I think doing very good work. They have really professional high-end shows. Some of it's hilarious as well, like that. But you're scraping at like single-digit kind of performers or YouTube channels or whatever it may be, not even necessarily main big budget content. It just seems to be that there's not even brands behind content creators that are sponsoring their channels or wherever it may be. Do you think that's just a lack of federal legislation in America and a lack of clarity in Europe, or the budgets aren't just even there, or the people running them just don't have a clue really how to run a cannabis business for the cannabis consumer industry?
to be honest, I think it could probably be a mixture of those things, legislative, but I think a lot of the time the big mainstream cannabis like people that are behind these kind of things are kind of, it could be that they're stuck in their ways. So like High Times or other individuals that they've been producing content in a particular way for so long that it's very difficult to kind of become novel. You know, it's very difficult to break out of the discipline in which you've made yourself in the first place. And I think that's where podcasts or like independent media, they seem so unique and they're so necessary because they came into the cannabis space with that as their creative outlet. Whereas these other creative brands that are talking about cannabis, they had something different. I'm thinking predominantly magazine-based, really. I mean, it's very difficult to go from being a predominantly magazine-orientated production to then going, right, let's now sponsor to do a podcast, let's now do this. So it could just be aged production. You know, it could just be that. I do also think as well that it's kind of that there is so much caution around how you speak about cannabis that it's sometimes either not to engage in conversation. It's sometimes either not to produce that kind of content because you could maybe make a difference. You could maybe make something wrong or something like that. So it's like, we'll stick with what we're doing and that'll be safe. We've got enough numbers and just kind of more of a cautionary approach than one that should be innovative or one that should be more focused along the fact that, like, let's break the boundaries of how the discussion's been taking place.
Yeah, it seems to me it's just very strange. If you take something like MMA, for example, you'll have DraftKings will sponsor 10 of the biggest podcasts and have a blanket, let's say, advertisement of all the main consumers in that industry. You'll get the same with Coca-Cola and FIFA and a number of other big brands. It just doesn't seem to be that they either haven't copped on to the opportunity that's there because investment from brands will help grow a channel, which will help grow the audience and vice versa. I think there's a massive opportunity there for marketing officers or content officers of companies to people like yourself, people like Martin that we spoke about. There's a number of other top podcasts like the Cannabis Conversation with Arouge and a couple of other guys. So it'd be good to see some of the money flowing in towards the content creation side of things and pick up the speed in this industry.
That's actually a great point. That's a great point, and I am all for somebody trying to sponsor the CannaMan stuff. Fucking right, bring the fucking money over. It's necessary because the thing is, let's be honest, we're all doing this for free. This is a passion led endeavor. This is like you've got to try and pay the rent at the same time as doing this, and I think that'd be a fantastic boost to what it is that everybody's doing because you'll provide more of an authenticity if you're being sponsored. But going back to what you mentioned about the legislation barriers, that's potentially the reason why that's not happened. So if you're an organisation and you're sponsoring private independent media that's based on a plant or a substance that's illegal in the region that they're producing their content, that's kind of conflicting to your marketing strategy. You know, it's very difficult to make that, you know, and as you know, when it comes to anything like financial transactions that's based in cannabis, any form of financial transaction with cannabis that's based in a region that's prohibiting it, immediately banks are fucking not taking that on board. You know what I mean? They're shutting it down. And so I think the amount of barriers that are in place could potentially be the main reason why that's not happened. And I hope it changes. I really do.
Yeah, well, I think we're one good piece of legislation, whether it be in the Czech Republic, be it in Germany, be it in federal legalization in the United States, away from a lot of M&A activity and a lot of more movement, and the consumer being able to benefit from the revenue and capital that the companies that are selling them products for should be able to benefit from. There should be loyalty rewards, content, concerts. There should be tons of things that are being done for the consumer that are actually spending the €10 or $10 per gram on specific type of flower.
I fully agree. And just going back to actually what I said before about the movie, one of the things I'm hoping to achieve is to get legitimate sponsors through cannabis businesses or organisations for the movie itself, to then promote it essentially regionally through the UK, but also internationally. So my intention is to hopefully get it into like the Montreal Film Festival or Adelaide. I'm hoping to get it viewed down at Product Earth. There's numerous independent cinemas around Scotland and Northern England as well that I'm hoping to get viewed, because essentially the basis of the movie is going to resonate with everybody that's has any form of knowledge of cannabis at all. Like the main baddie in the movie, people are going to know immediately why he's the baddie. The fundamental story behind why CannaMan is who he is, immediately people are going to be like, oh, fuck it. Like, this is going to click so many things for people. And interestingly as well, the movie, even though it's got a very explicit cannabis theme, the baddies cannabis themed, two baddies are cannabis themed actually, the hero's cannabis themed, his role before he became CannaMan is cannabis themed. There is, on top of that undertone, essentially underneath that explicit template, is a story which is based in all of our journeys in life, where each single one of us is walking through life with a quest of what we're doing here, why is it we're doing what we're doing, and it's essentially the philosopher's journey. That's what you're dealing with. Whether you're aware of it or not, all of us are walking through life with this existential pursuit of meaning, and that's the nature of what the CannaMan movie is. It's an existential film with humor and it's fucking swearing all the way through it. Let's be honest. And on top of that is the cannabis story, pharmaceutical basis and all this kind of shit. So that's going to be a big deal this year. That's going to be a really exciting thing when that's released, and it won't be available online immediately. It will be essentially, I'll be doing a tour around the UK cinema wise. And then after that, most likely it'll be through PayPal or something like that, like a download subscription thing, where it'll be a tenner that you can watch it at one time. But that's going to be in the same line. This is going to be the Cheech and Chong animation. In 20 years' time, people are going to be talking about this. This is what this is.
Mate, I absolutely love it. I love it, the amount of stuff that you've got going on. It's great to see and hear. And as I said, if the Cannabis Review can help in any way, shape, or form, promote or get the name out with it, and you just let us know, and we'd be there to do it for you.
I appreciate that a lot, Ian. And let's say once it's ready, a few months, because I'm hoping to do like a podcast tour, when it's almost ready. So I'd be more than happy. I'd be delighted to come back on and speak to you again, man.
You can guarantee that. But for now, we're just at our time, so I'm gonna have to say goodbye. We'll definitely have a chat in a couple of weeks or a month or so when you're getting the tour going, and I'd definitely love to have another chat. It's been great talking to you, Conor.
You too, man. Thank you very much.
Happy days. Until next episode, everybody.